Vishnupada Paramahamsa Vargajakasaya Shila Astutar His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Yamuna Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai. All glories to the single devotees of Hare Krishna. All glories to the single devotees of All glories to the single devotees of Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Pancha Kalpatarubhishya Kripa Sindhu Bhayavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna everybody, welcome, good morning. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, entitled Remembrance of Lord Krishna, and we are reading text 4. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Samuhurtam Abhutushnim Krishnangri Sudaya Bhushan Divrena Bhakti Yogena Nimagna Sadhu Nirvritaha Samuhurtam Abhutushnim Krishnangri Sudaya Bhushan Divrena Bhakti Yogena Nimagna Sadhu Nivritaha. Word for word. Saha Uddhava Muhurtam for a moment. Abhut became. Tushnim dead silent. Krishna Angri the lotus feet of the Lord. Sudaya by the nectar. Vrisham well matured. Divrena by very strong. Bhakti Yogena devotional service. Nimagnaha absorbed in. Sadhu good. Nivritaha fully in love. Translation. For a moment he remained dead silent, and his body did not move. He became absorbed in the nectar of remembering the Lord's lotus feet in devotional ecstasy, and he appeared to be going increasingly deeper into that ecstasy. Please repeat. For a moment, he remained dead silent, and his body did not move. He became absorbed in the nectar of remembering the Lord's lotus feet in devotional ecstasy, and he appeared to be going increasingly deeper into that ecstasy. On the inquiry by Vidura about Krishna, Uddhava appeared to be awakened from slumber. He appeared to regret that he had forgotten the lotus feet of the Lord. Thus he again remembered the lotus feet of the Lord and remembered all his transcendental loving service unto him, and by so doing he felt the same ecstasy that he used to feel in the presence of the Lord. Because the Lord is absolute, there is no difference between his remembrance and his personal presence. Thus Uddhava remained completely silent for a moment, but then he appeared to be going deeper and deeper into ecstasy. Feelings of ecstasy are displayed by highly advanced devotees of the Lord. There are 8 kinds of transcendental changes in the body: tears, shivering of the body, perspiration, restlessness, throbbing, choking of the throat, etc. And all were manifested by Uddhava in the presence of Vidura. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Devi Krishna Goswami Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaur. I seek the blessings of all the symbol devotees that I may speak something that is beneficial for all of us, especially for myself and for self-purification, and mostly when we speak we are actually preaching to our own mind, so that when we share this knowledge it penetrates our stone-like heart, so we can also change and make progress on this devotional path. So Prabhupada in this verse is mentioning the ecstatic symptoms of Uddhava. So here he mentions some of the ecstatic symptoms like tears in the eyes, shivering, perspiration. So one may question, how is that manifested? And it's Prabhupada mentions that's through deep absorption by hearing, chanting and remembering. So in this purport, it's mentioned that Uddhava appeared to have forgotten, and as soon as Vidura asked him about Krishna, then he remembered. But this word, it says that he appeared to have forgotten and he regretted it. It's not that he did forget, because a pure devotee never for a moment forgets Krishna, just like Srila Prabhupada. He's a pure devotee of Krishna, but he never for a moment forgot Krishna. But because he was engaged in service, he put aside his devotional ecstasies, which he did manifest sometimes, but not intentionally. And he always tried to brush it aside. So the example is given in the scriptures about Taruka, who is Krishna's chariot driver. So once he was fanning Krishna, and he couldn't fan properly because he was getting ecstatic symptoms, and he was not happy about it. He didn't want those feelings because he wanted to serve the Lord to his best ability. So these ecstatic symptoms, they get in the way of doing the practical service of serving the Lord. Just like in Srila Prabhupada's example, we in Lilamrita, Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita, it talks about a few times when Srila Prabhupada did exhibit ecstatic symptoms. He was completely silent and no one knew what to do. And then when the devotees didn't know what to do because they were very new, and then afterwards one devotee in one of the cases was chanting, and then a senior devotee went to ask Prabhupada, what should we do when that happens, or what happened? Then he minimized what happened, but he actually went into devotional ecstasy. So from this purport we can understand that a pure devotee does have ecstatic symptoms, but the pure devotee doesn't allow those ecstatic symptoms to get in the way. Just like right now, just before class, we were reading the Sikshashtakam, and in the verse 6, 7 and 8, it says that O son of Maharaj Ananda, O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your holy name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. So we are chanting these prayers every day, and we may question that if in the case of Srila Prabhupada and Uddhava, where they didn't want those ecstatic symptoms to manifest, why is it that we are praying for this every day? But actually we are not exactly directly praying for those. We are praying for what is coming from that. So Prabhupada mentions this Prakrita Sahajiyas, where they, like in India, sometimes the men dress up as gopis, or they're dancing, or there was one incident at a temple in America where someone came and was dancing ecstatically, and the devotees were very new, they didn't know what to do, and then the person started rolling on the ground and was crying, and then they asked Prabhupada afterwards, what should we do, and then Prabhupada said, kick him in the face. Of course we won't kick him in the face, but he's trying to say this, it's not a cheap thing. Expressing devotional ecstasies is not something cheap, and it's not something that a real pure devotee will publicly display, even if they're feeling it. They'll suppress it, just like Srila Prabhupada. He couldn't help but feel that ecstasy when he had tears in his eyes, or when he became completely silent and stunned, just like how it's mentioned, Uddhava. But when it did happen, he very quietly, and he brushed it aside. So he didn't place any importance of that. So there was the initiation just recently, was it last night, yesterday, or the day before yesterday? Yeah, Sunday night. So Kadambakanana Swami, he mentioned, he gave homework to his disciples, and he gave this Srimad Bhagavatam verse 2:111, which the chapter is entitled "The First Step in God Realization." So it's mentioned that in the purport, it's mentioned that the devotee just wants to satisfy the Lord only. So we see in the example of Krishna's chariot driver Daruka, those ecstatic symptoms he was feeling, it was getting in the way of him satisfying the Lord by fanning him, because he wanted to, it was hot and he wanted to fan Krishna to give him some nice breeze. So we see the essence of why, the ecstatic symptom comes because of that deep absorption in Krishna. And in that purport, it also mentions offenseless chanting and hearing of the holy name of the Lord. So how do we get that ecstatic symptom? Is by chanting and hearing and completely absorbing ourselves in the Lord's service and his pastimes, hearing about his, as Kadambakanana Swami was also mentioning, how we read the books, or we can listen to the audio books like in BVL, Bhaktivedanta Library. And we get absorbed in remembering Krishna. So that one pointed focus, here it's mentioned in this text, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. Tivrena means one pointed focus. So there's also another verse, a famous verse in Bhagavatam, which has also in the third line of the text, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena, and that's the famous verse in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10, which says, Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udarati Tivrena Bhakti Yogena yajeta purusham param, which the translation is, a person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desire, without any material desire or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Whole, the personality of Godhead. So in this verse, it's mentioned a Kama spirit. So a Kama spirit, so we know that Kama means lust. So Kama spirit is the desire for one's own satisfaction. But the devotee doesn't want those ecstatic symptoms that come, because it's getting in the way of satisfying the Lord, which is a Kama spirit, aspiring for the satisfaction of the Lord and loving the Lord without expecting anything in return. But Krishna is very kind, that he's not hard-hearted. He actually loves us, and he wants to give us that love, even though we don't expect anything. But that's the secret of success, is that when we serve Krishna without expecting anything, that's when we get everything. And this word Tivrena is so powerful. In this purport of 2.3.10, the famous verse, it says with great force. Tivrena means when we do bhakti yoga with great force and we seriously take up. And in this text, or today's text, it says in the word for word, it means, Tivrena means by very strong. So there's great emphasis on the practice of devotional service, to become very focused, very one-pointed in serving the Lord, by deep absorption in hearing, chanting and remembering. So Kadambakanana Swami, he is giving this instruction because he knows that his time is limited. But all of us, our time is limited, and everything he's giving the essence here, that it's not something external. Prabhupada is giving all his instruction, everything is here. We just need to apply it. So I was just thinking sometimes devotees, they ask, oh, please bless me, or please bless my child, or it's the birthday, and that, and I was kind of reflecting on that actually in Krishna consciousness, the blessings are there for everyone who's taking up this path, who's taking even a step forward for Krishna. Blessings are automatically inbuilt in this process of Bhakti Yoga. But there is a big but, there is that we need to apply, there's an application in the prayer. So when we are praying to Krishna that, oh Krishna, please help me to be humble, please help me to be tolerant, and then we don't forget about it, we try to act on that prayer, like in our day-to-day lives, and we may not always pass the test, just like a child who is learning to walk. They may fall down and get bruises on their knees or their hands and they get hurt, but they don't give up. And also the parents and the adults, their siblings, they don't discourage that child. They're always encouraging them, okay, get up, keep going. So similarly in devotional life, we may not sometimes pass our tests, and in each individual we've got our own test paper. So we can't compare to someone else, because I was just remembering once a while ago, Hari Sauri Prabhu, he's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and he was Srila Prabhupada's personal servant at one point for some time, and he was sharing this pastime of Srila Prabhupada that there's this devotee called Ambrish Prabhu. He's actually the descendant of the Ford Motors, the car company. So he once was with Prabhupada, and then when Prabhupada was driving off, then Ambrish Prabhu got in the car and drove off with Prabhupada, and then there was another devotee standing next to Hari Sauri Prabhu, and he was mumbling and grumbling and saying, oh, why does Ambrish Prabhu get to go with Srila Prabhupada in the car? And then in his mind, Hari Sauri Prabhu was telling us in class, reflecting that in his mind he was thinking that this devotee, Ambrish Prabhu, has done some previous activities in order to earn that. So we don't know what anyone else has done, whether in this life, the work they've done previously, or the work they've done previously in other previous lives. Just like sometimes someone very new may come to Krishna consciousness, and they take up so fast, like a rocket, and they're really taking it up very seriously, and they may take it up even faster than someone who's been around for many, many years, and one may think, oh, why is that? But because that person may have done very pious activities. So in connection with devotional life, pious activities is not just ordinary pious activities like building the road and things like that. That pious activity is, in the context of devotional service, is something that's connected to Krishna or his devotees. So we hear of the gopis in Krishna book, they say, oh, what pious activities have we done to get the association of Krishna? But it's not talking about ordinary pious activities like helping someone, which is good in itself, but it will also bring us back to the material world. It's good pious karmic activities will give us a good birth, but it's still going in the repeated loop of cycle of birth and death. But the pious activities in the context of devotional service is something that's connected to devotional service, like contributing to a building in itself is not a great thing, but contributing to the building of a temple or a preaching center is a pious activity, devotional pious activity. So, so the foundation, so one shouldn't compare oneself to someone else. Yes, in devotional life we are inspired by someone else. Like in the same homework that Kadambakanana Swami gave to his disciples, Srimad Bhagavatam 2:1-11, it says that that one should follow in the footsteps of the previous acharyas and the teachers. So by following, there's a difference between, I think it's anusar and there's another word, I don't recall it at the moment, but following in the footsteps and imitating are two very different things. Because if one hasn't built that own foundation, just like in a building, if your foundation is not stable, you build a building high, it will collapse. So we need to be introspective and see where we are at and be honest, and then we can aspire and be inspired by other devotees that we can follow in the footsteps, but we don't become that devotee. Just like Srila Prabhupada talks about how when we are attached to a certain service, like we attach to Krishna, the example is given as a parent, we don't become Mother Yashoda or Nanda Baba. We follow in their footsteps and we see their mood of devotional service, and we do those activities, but we don't become that person. So we are not impersonalists. Each individual person, living entity, is very individual and has a unique relationship with Krishna. So we shouldn't try to compare or imitate someone. We look at where we are in our Krishna consciousness, and we be inspired by other devotees, and we build our own strong foundation in devotional service, and then we can build up gradually, and ultimately we all going to go back to Krishna, and we are all on this path of devotional service, and we are all on different stages, and we help each other in devotional service. So these, in that same purport 2.1.11, it talks about hearing from the authorities is the first essential. So the word essential is very significant here. Essential means something that is necessary and is required. And in that same purport it says a process that is recommended. So everything is given here, how to do it, and it says there that one can deliver oneself from all offenses by attentive chanting of the holy names of the Lord, and this is the recommended process in this age of Kali Yuga. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, like in the example of Daruka, the chariot driver of Krishna who was fanning the Lord, in this purport it mentioned that the Supreme Lord, and the Lord is non-different from His holy name, is the Supreme Enjoyer. So it says there, He is not one's servant or order supplier. Like yesterday, Garuda Govinda Prabhu was giving class, and he was mentioning how sometimes people come to the temple and they say, give me this, God give me this, God give me that. But Krishna is not our servant and He's not our order supplier. And when we actually hear and we read about the pastimes of the Lord and His devotees, none of His devotees ever ask Krishna for anything for personal sense gratification. They're always asking for devotional service. Because this sense gratification, it comes automatically. Just like in Krishna book, listening to BVL, the Bhaktivedanta Library audio, and it's talking about the pastime when Krishna and Balaram were going to Mathura, and on the way they met this Sudama, he was a tailor, was it the garland maker, one of them, and he wholeheartedly made the garland for Krishna, and he wanted to give it because prior to that there was a tailor who didn't want to give Krishna the clothes that were meant for King Kamsa. And even when Krishna asked him, and he says, he's actually insulting Krishna, he says, you're just an ordinary person, don't ask for the king's clothing. And Krishna became very angry, and with his hand he chopped off the neck of that tailor. So it's like that pastime where it says Krishna with any part of his body he can do anything. And then as he was going on his way, exploring the city of Mathura, he came across this garland maker, this Mali, that means the garland maker, and he gave that garland. So that Sudama, the garland maker, he asked Krishna just for devotional service, that he may remember Krishna always, birth after birth. But Krishna, he also gave on top of that all material opulence, and then at the end of his life he'll go back home, back to Godhead. So it's not that a devotee doesn't get opulence. Sometimes we do hear that the devotees of Lord Vishnu, everything is taken away, and the devotees of Lord Shiva, for example, the demigods, gets all material opulence. But it's not always the case. Just like the example of, depends the level of consciousness of the devotee. Just like Ambrish Maharaj, he's a great king and he had all opulence, but he used that opulence in Krishna's service, and he was not at all attached to that material opulence. So it depends on one's own consciousness. Of course, Queen Kunti says that, material opulence, birth, high birth, beauty is an obstacle in devotional service. But it depends also on one's own consciousness. Someone may be very beautiful, but they can be so absorbed in Krishna, love of Krishna, just like the gopis of Vrindavan. They were so beautiful, but they never for a moment thought, I am so beautiful. But they were always focused on Krishna. Or someone who's very wealthy, like we have great devotees, we hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, who are great kings and very wealthy, but they were not distracted from that wealth. Just like we hear Bharat Maharaj, he had all opulence, he was very young, he had a beautiful body, he had beautiful wife and children and a great kingdom, but he was able to renounce it and go to the forest towards the end of his life because he was attached to Krishna. So the key is attachment to Krishna and following in the footsteps of the devotees of Lord Krishna. So in that, this purport of this text today, it says there is no difference between remembrance of Krishna and his personal presence. So there's the example of in the Nectar of Devotion given of one poor Brahmana. He would go to this temple and he heard one of the priests at that temple, the devotee, saying that there is no difference between worshipping the Lord in one's mind and worshipping the Lord practically, like personally. So he was meditating on this and he was very poor. So he went to the bank of one of the sacred lakes, and then he started meditating on cooking some nice sweet rice for Krishna. And then he wanted to offer it to Krishna, but he wanted to check if it was not too hot because Krishna might burn his tongue when eating. So he touched it and immediately he came out of trance in that meditation because he burnt his finger. And he was surprised and shocked to see that he actually burnt his finger. So that deep absorption in Krishna is non-different from experiencing that direct relationship with Krishna. But in saying that, if one does have material opulence and wealth, and if one doesn't use it in Krishna's service, then he's considered very miserly, because it depends on one's own level of consciousness and one's own also external opulences and gifts that are given by Krishna. So everything we have, we use it in the service of Krishna. And if by Krishna's mercy, and yes, it is also mercy if one is not materially opulent, because a devotee sees everything as the mercy of the Lord, even if he's poor, but he is seeing that, okay, I have this consciousness that I can focus on Krishna. It's a gift that Krishna has given me, that I can put my attention towards him, and I'm not affected by this poverty-stricken condition, just like Sudama Brahmana. He wasn't, who was a friend of Krishna, he wasn't affected by that poverty. He was just happy in Krishna's service. Krishna gave him material opulence, but there's also some other reason why Krishna gave, but in this context we'll just talk about that Krishna takes care of his devotees and also gives them material opulence, but the devotee uses everything in the Lord's service. So also another homework that Kadambakanana Swami gave his disciples was to read Nectar of Devotion, chapters 1 to 18 or 19 to 19. So in the Nectar of Devotion, chapter 18, which is entitled Character of One in Ecstatic Love. So we heard in this purport about the ecstatic symptoms. So in there, chapter 18, it talks about, Rupa Goswami is saying the characteristics of one in ecstatic love is that one, he is always anxious to utilize his time in the devotional service of the Lord. He does not like to be idle. He wants service always, 24 hours a day, without deviation. So these ecstatic symptoms, they come because of absorption and love in Krishna. But the devotees, the pure devotee or any devotee, even it says that someone who's very new can sometimes experience these devotional ecstasies, but it's not that we publicize it or we make a show of it, but we just keep focusing on the Lord's service. Just like I was listening to one of the classes by one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples. His name is Madhyuta Swami, I'm not sure the pronunciation is correct, and he was talking about how sometimes the new devotees would tell Prabhupada, oh Prabhupada, I see this light when I'm chanting Hare Krishna, or I hear a buzzing sound, and Prabhupada says, oh don't worry, it will go away. So he didn't put emphasis on all these other things that are coming. It may have been ecstatic symptoms or something that they're experiencing, or it may not have been, but the devotee is just focused on serving Krishna, and it says 24 hours a day. And he is always reserved and perseverant. He is always detached from all material attraction. He does not long for any material respect in return for his activities. So it's not like we're always saying, oh, I did this in the old days, or I did that, or I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Yes, devotees do. My Guru Maharaj says that a devotee does share sometimes what they're doing, but that's because they want, they are inspiring other devotees, and when they're speaking also, like for example, if someone says they appreciated something in class and they're being specific, that actually is inspiring the person who spoke in their own devotional life. So appreciating someone is different from puffing someone's ego up. And we also need to be introspective when we are talking about ourselves, when we did this or we did that, or we went on Harinam, or we did this, or addressed the deities, or whatever. We need to be reflecting that, why am I saying this? You know, is it for my own self-aggrandizement, or so we should always be introspective in that. So we shouldn't, in this fourth point it says, he does not long for any material respect in return for his activities. So of course there is respect on the spiritual platform, but always being introspective in our own lives of what we're doing, why we're saying something, and why we're doing something. That, okay, is this my false ego coming up? And then, okay, just keep quiet and walk away and reflect. Why am I feeling this way, and why am I feeling irritated or disturbed? And then say, okay, because I have a certain need. My Guru Maharaj, he talks about empathic communication. So when we're feeling something, we also first, before we can also be empathic with someone else, we need to also be self-empathic that, oh, why am I feeling this? Because I have a need for appreciation. Okay, then I can see, okay, then the false ego is kind of moved out of the way, then we can actually address the situation in a better and a proper way. And point 5, he is always certain that Krishna will bestow his mercy upon him, because as Kadambakanana Swami says, and as Srila Prabhupada has given us this process of following rising early, going for Mangal Aarti and coming for class, chanting the holy names of the Lord, a specific number of rounds, whatever we've made vows to, and progressing gradually and maintaining our Krishna consciousness. And he is very much attached to the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. He is always eager to describe the transcendental qualities of the Lord. He is very pleased to live in a place where the Lord's pastimes are performed. So how can we be focused on these and know what we want in devotional service is by reading, because it's not something that is sentimental. Sometimes someone, like as Garuda Prabhu was mentioning, that someone comes and they say, oh, I've already done that, I already was coming for Mangal Aarti, I'm a devotee. Or someone may say, oh, I mean, of course we respect devotees, but someone may say that it has happened that someone can say that, oh, I'm a Prabhupada disciple, and then expecting honor. And like I remember one Sachinandan Swami, he gave a retreat here, he came, and he actually mentioned it. He said there was one guest, in the village who came, and they were saying, what is Prabhupada disciple mean? Because that person was relating that one devotee told him, he was sitting on the chair, and he said, I'm a Prabhupada disciple, move away, let me sit on the chair. So of course we do give honor to a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. So it's not that, it was just in this one case that devotee said that. But we need to question that whether someone is a Prabhupada disciple, or whether someone is born in the movement, whether someone is serving the deities, whether someone is a certain number of years. If that devotee genuinely is, or we are genuinely following, we will not expect honor, even though sometimes, yes, that honor should be given. We should respect Prabhupada disciples or someone who's been practicing for a long time and things like that, but we should respect everyone. And then, of course, if a senior devotee comes, we give them, if we're sitting on a chair and we don't really need it, we move aside. But it's the consciousness of the individual that we need to see. So we need to see for ourselves that where is my consciousness? We're not expecting any honor for ourselves, and following in the footsteps of the devotees. And then we can only go deeper and deeper. So we can't cheat. In this process of Krishna consciousness, we can't cheat anyone, even if we have a position or a title, or we are anyone is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, or is born in a movement, is a disciple of a prominent guru in the movement, or it's not external. Yes, externally we follow the process. We may be a sari, tilak, we have a sika, whatever it is. But this process is very much an internal process. So externally we do just like a police officer. He goes to the police station and he's on duty. He wears his uniform. But when he's outside of his uniform and he goes home, then he's not going to do bad things, Of course, ideally, we are in the material world and there are bad policemen. But, we are representing Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya, and we are aspiring devotees of the Lord. So when we are not in these clothes, so clothes in themselves, like my Guru Maharaj says, is not devotional clothes or karmic clothes. There's no such thing as karmic clothes. It's just clothes that it's the consciousness behind what they're used for. Just like the example is given in Shastra of a knife. The surgeon uses the knife to save someone's life, but a killer uses the same knife to murder someone. So is that knife a karmi knife and a devotee knife? No. It's something that is utilized in service to Krishna. Just like Prabhupada says, you dress as you be gentlemen and young women. So someone who's wearing shirt and pants and goes out and distribute books, that doesn't mean, he's in karmic clothes. Of course, in those days they used that term in that context, but it's not something derogatory, and it was just used in context. So it depends on the consciousness of a person. Of course, when we come to the temple, it's not that we come in shorts or pants and that. Of course, we need to follow the tradition and the culture of Krishna consciousness. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that someone who is wearing shirt and pants or a skirt is of a lower consciousness, or the clothes are karmic clothes or non-devotional. So ultimately it's the consciousness behind it. And I'll just read this translation again. For a moment he remained dead silent, and his body did not move. He became absorbed in the nectar of remembering the Lord's lotus feet in devotional ecstasy, and he appeared to be going increasingly deeper into that ecstasy. So our goal is to make progress on this path of devotional service, and then it's our own internal relationship with Krishna that we go deeper and deeper. And when we go deeper and deeper, then we'll see that our heart will become cleansed and purified. We'll see that we're not feeling the same how we used to when we first came to Krishna consciousness. Then we see, okay, some progress is being made, and it's something that is an internal thing. It's not that we go about telling people about it, but we see for ourselves, am I making progress? Am I trying to hear properly? Am I doing all my services to please Krishna even when no one is looking? Am I doing it conscientiously? Am I doing certain services properly and certain services just to tick the box? Just for example, like paraphernalia, someone may do the paraphernalia and just maybe do it very nicely, or do it just quickly take shortcuts, and then when it's a festival day and I get to do a certain so-called service that is in the spotlight, then we do it nicely. No, every single service we do, we should do it nicely, even if it's not seen by others, because Krishna is seeing it. So, like for example, I do pujari service, dress the deities. So it's not just, okay, the darshan is beautiful. There's so much background involved in it. How am I interacting with the devotees? Am I also assisting other devotees? Am I just thinking, oh, only my service is important and barging in? Or am I taking out the Lord's clothing and jewelry neatly and tidily? Am I packing it away nicely? Am I leaving the area, the service area? Am I working in? Do I clean it nicely before I start my service? Clean the trays, clean the bench top so it's nice and clean for the Lord. And then am I cleaning it up afterwards for the next devotee to come? So a devotee always leaves their place of service cleaner than how they saw it. So I'll just end there. If anyone has any questions, comments, corrections. Yes, Sajani. You can use this microphone. You can hold it closer. I'm just remembering Vaisheshika Prabhu was mentioning that one should have a little sense of karyan, which is some sense of, regret and that, but one shouldn't focus on it. I think it's not working. one shouldn't focus on the negative aspect of it. Yes, if one notices that afterwards on reflection that this exchange wasn't to the best that it could have been, then one may reflect on it and then move on. So as Vaisheshika Prabhu said, don't keep kind of replaying it and like a broken record in the mind. We learn from it, and even though sometimes it can happen again, but don't become despondent. We are like the bodybuilder who's lifting weights. We're gradually starting small and we are lifting. So it's a daily process. Like remembering Ramai Swami, he once gave, people are always asking the question how to balance, but he says that every moment to moment we are working on it, and every moment to moment we are having choices to make. So we shouldn't be distracted by the experiences or the interactions or exchanges that are not the ideal, but then we always keep going, moving forward. Because in the material world, even us as aspiring devotees, we may get distracted by this and that, or why this person said that, why did this person say that, or why did I respond this way or react this way. But these things are all distracting. It's the Maya's agents, the Kali's agents. Maya is so strong that even us as aspiring devotees, it's so obvious that we are getting caught up in it. But we need to keep the like Ganga Prabhu, who was here from Mayapur, he says, keep the main thing the main thing. And I think Padmalochan Prabhu likes saying that. I think Labangalatika, we know her husband says that. So yeah, we don't just harp on it and just focus on it. We move forward. We learn from it, and sometimes it may happen again, but we keep learning. Just like in school, the child does make mistakes or does that, but as they get older and they make progress, and the friends and the teachers, they encourage and keep going forward. So that's what I got. So we'll end there. Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.